Step into History Page, where Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot brings timeless mysteries to life.
In the shadowy halls of Blackthorn Manor, a scream pierces the night, and Sir Reginald Ashford, a diplomat with secrets that could topple empires, vanishes without a trace. Was it a kidnapping, a murder, or something far more sinister? A blood-stained handkerchief, a Turkish cigarette, a lost glove, and a cryptic letter fragment point to a house full of suspects, each hiding motives of love, betrayal, and ambition. Enter Hercule Poirot, the brilliant Belgian detective whose little gray cells unravel a web of deception so cunning it threatens to ensnare them all. Can he uncover the truth before the shadows of Blackthorn Manor claim another victim? Prepare for a mystery where every clue is a trap, every smile hides a lie, and the final twist will leave you breathless. Chapter 1. The Shadow over Blackthorn Manor. The late summer sun cast long golden fingers across the rolling lawns of Blackthorn Manor, a sprawling Elizabethan estate nestled in the heart of the Sussex countryside. Its ivy-clad walls, punctuated by mullioned windows, gleamed with an air of timeless dignity. Yet beneath the serene facade, a quiet unease simmered. The manor, owned by the illustrious Sir Reginald Ashford, was hosting a weekend gathering of notable figures from London's elite, a gathering that, unbeknownst to its guests, was destined to end in tragedy. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever the loyal companion of Hercule Poirot, stepped out of the chauffeured Rolls-Royce and adjusted his tie, his eyes scanning the scene. The air was thick with the scent of roses and freshly cut grass, and the distant hum of bees added a soporific charm to the afternoon. Yet Hastings felt a prickle of apprehension. Sir Reginald, a retired diplomat and confidant of the Prime Minister, had extended the invitation with an urgency that belied the casual tone of his letter. "A matter of some delicacy," he had written, "requires the presence of a man of discretion. Bring your friend, Monsieur Poirot, if you please." Hastings glanced at Poirot, who emerged from the car with his usual fastidious grace. The little Belgian detective, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit and polished shoes, adjusted his mustache with a delicate flick of his fingers. His green eyes, sharp as cut emeralds, surveyed the manor with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice soft but precise. "This place, it has the air of a stage, no? The actors are assembled, but the script, it remains hidden." Hastings chuckled, though his unease lingered. "You see mysteries everywhere, Poirot. It's a weekend in the country, not a conspiracy." Poirot's lips twitched into a faint smile. "We shall see, Hastings. We shall see." The guests were an eclectic mix, each a figure of prominence or intrigue. Sir Reginald, a portly man with a florid complexion and a booming laugh, greeted them at the grand oak doors. Beside him stood his wife, Lady Eleanor Ashford, a striking woman in her late 40s, her auburn hair swept into an elegant chignon. Her smile was warm, but her eyes darted nervously as if searching for something or someone. Also present was Lord Percival Cavendish, a financier with a reputation for ruthless ambition, his cold blue eyes scanning the room like a predator. His young wife, Lady Beatrice, clung to his arm, her delicate beauty marred by a strained expression. Then there was Dr. Malcolm Fraser, a renowned neurologist whose reserved demeanor contrasted with his sharp, probing questions. Miss Clara Wentworth, a novelist of some fame, fluttered about with an air of distracted charm, her notebook never far from her hand. Finally, there was Mr. Victor Langston, a political aide to the Prime Minister, whose boyish charm and quick wit masked a calculating mind. The afternoon passed in a blur of polite conversation and croquet on the lawn. Yet as the sun dipped below the horizon and the guests gathered for dinner in the oak-paneled dining room, the atmosphere grew taut. Sir Reginald, usually jovial, seemed distracted, his gaze flitting to the windows as if expecting an uninvited guest. Lady Eleanor's laughter was forced, and even Miss Wentworth's usual chatter faltered. It was during the serving of the consommé that the first hint of trouble emerged. A footman, pale and trembling, approached Sir Reginald and whispered urgently in his ear. The diplomat's face drained of color, and he excused himself abruptly, leaving the table in stunned silence. "Whatever is the matter?" Lady Beatrice asked, her voice trembling. Lady Eleanor forced a smile. "A minor matter, I'm sure. Reginald will return shortly." But he did not. An hour later, as the guests lingered over dessert, a piercing scream echoed from the upper floors. The party rushed upstairs to find Lady Eleanor standing in the doorway of Sir Reginald's study, her hands pressed to her mouth. The room was in disarray, papers scattered, a chair overturned, and a window flung open to the night air. Sir Reginald was gone. Hastings, his heart pounding, surveyed the scene. "Good heavens, Poirot, he's been taken." Poirot's eyes gleamed as he stepped into the study, his small frame radiating authority. "Taken, you say? Or perhaps something else? Observe, Hastings, the broken glass, the papers, the window. This is no ordinary disappearance. This, mon ami, is a performance." The guests gathered in the doorway, their faces a mix of shock and suspicion. Lord Cavendish's jaw tightened, and Dr. Fraser's hands clenched into fists. Miss Wentworth clutched her notebook, her eyes wide with a writer's morbid fascination. Victor Langston, however, seemed curiously calm, his gaze fixed on Poirot. "Someone must call the police," Lady Beatrice whispered. Poirot raised a hand. "Non, non. The police, they will trample the delicate threads of this mystery. Hercule Poirot is here, and I shall uncover the truth. But first, mes amis, we must ask ourselves, what did Sir Reginald know that made him so valuable, or so dangerous?" The night deepened, and the manor seemed to close in around them, its shadows hiding secrets that only Poirot's little gray cells could unravel. The stage was set, the players assembled, and the curtain had risen on a mystery that would test even the great detective's genius. As the guests dispersed to their rooms, Hastings lingered, watching Poirot examine the study with meticulous care. A single sheet of paper, crumpled and tucked beneath the desk, caught the detective's eye. He unfolded it, his expression unreadable. "What is it, Poirot?" Hastings asked. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "A clue, mon ami, the first of many. This paper, it tells a story, but not the one our kidnapper wishes us to believe." And so began the investigation into the disappearance of Sir Reginald Ashford, a puzzle that would unravel the hidden motives, buried secrets, and tangled lies of Blackthorn Manor's illustrious guests. Chapter 2. The Night of the Vanishing. The air in Blackthorn Manor grew heavy as the clock in the grand hall chimed midnight, its somber toll reverberating through the silent corridors. The guests, shaken by Sir Reginald Ashford's sudden disappearance, had retired to their rooms, but sleep eluded them. The once inviting estate now felt like a labyrinth of secrets, its darkened corners whispering of treachery. Captain Hastings, standing by the window of his guest room, watched the moon cast eerie shadows across the manicured lawns, his mind replaying the chaotic scene in Sir Reginald's study. Hercule Poirot, however, was not one to succumb to the oppression of atmosphere. In the drawing room, now dimly lit by a single chandelier, he sat in a high-backed chair, his small hands folded neatly in his lap. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, darted about the room as if the very walls might yield a clue to the mystery at hand. Hastings joined him, unable to shake the chill that had settled in his bones. "Poirot," Hastings began, his voice low, "this business feels altogether sinister. Sir Reginald, gone without a trace, papers scattered, a window broken. It's the work of kidnappers, surely." Poirot tilted his head, his mustache twitching slightly. "Kidnappers, you say? Perhaps, mon ami, but the scene, it is too theatrical. The broken glass, the overturned chair. It is as if someone wishes us to believe in a struggle that may not have occurred. Non, Hastings, we must look beyond the obvious. The truth, it hides in the details." Before Hastings could respond, a soft knock interrupted them. Lady Eleanor Ashford entered, her face pale and drawn, her auburn hair slightly disheveled. She clutched a silk shawl tightly around her shoulders, as if warding off an unseen cold. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling, "I cannot rest. I must know. What have you found? Reginald. He is not a man to vanish without reason. He was troubled, yes, but he would not leave me without a word." Poirot rose, his manner courteous but probing. "Madame, your husband's disappearance is indeed a puzzle. Tell me, what was the nature of his trouble? You mentioned earlier a minor matter. Perhaps it was not so minor, non?" Lady Eleanor hesitated, her eyes flickering to the fireplace where embers glowed faintly. He received a letter yesterday morning. It upset him greatly. He would not show it to me, but he said it concerned a matter of national importance. Reginald was always so discreet, you see. His work with the Prime Minister—" She broke off, her hand rising to her lips. Poirot's gaze sharpened. "This letter, madame, where is it now?" "I don't know," she admitted. "He kept it in his study, locked in his desk, but when I looked after he was gone, the desk was open and the letter was missing." Poirot nodded, his expression inscrutable. "Merci, madame. You have been most helpful. Now I suggest you rest. The night is long, and tomorrow Hercule Poirot will begin his work in earnest." As Lady Eleanor departed, Hastings turned to Poirot, exasperated. "A letter of national importance? This could be espionage, Poirot. Perhaps Sir Reginald was taken by foreign agents." Poirot's smile was faint but indulgent. "Always the imagination, Hastings. Espionage, it is possible, but we must not leap to conclusions. First, we must examine the stage of this crime, the study itself, and the players who surround it." The next morning, as dawn painted the manor in hues of pink and gold, Poirot and Hastings returned to Sir Reginald's study. The room remained as it had been the previous night. Papers strewn across the floor, a heavy oak chair toppled and the window ajar, its frame splintered where glass had been shattered. Poirot moved with deliberate precision, his gloved hands touching nothing until he had surveyed every inch of the scene. "Observe, Hastings," he said, pointing to the broken window. "The glass. It lies outside, not inside. This suggests the window was broken from within the room, not by an intruder forcing entry. Curious, non?" Hastings frowned. "But why would someone inside break the window?" "To create the illusion of a forced entry, perhaps," Poirot replied. Now let us consider the papers. He knelt, examining the scattered documents. Most were mundane, letters of correspondence, financial records, but one caught his eye. A single sheet, crumpled and tucked beneath the desk as he had noticed the previous night. He retrieved it, smoothing it carefully. It was a timetable meticulously handwritten, detailing Sir Reginald's movements for the week. One entry stood out. 3 p.m., Friday, meeting with VL, urgent. The initials VL were underlined twice. VL? Hastings mused. Victor Langston, perhaps. He's the Prime Minister's aide, after all. Perhaps, Poirot said, folding the paper and slipping it into his pocket. But we must not assume. Let us speak with the others. The morning was spent interviewing the guests, each of whom presented a carefully curated facade. Lord Percival Cavendish, seated in the library, spoke with clipped precision, denying any knowledge of Sir Reginald's troubles. The man was a diplomat, not a saint, he said. He had enemies, no doubt, but I know nothing of them. His wife, Lady Beatrice, was less composed, her hands trembling as she spoke of Sir Reginald's kindness to her. He treated me like a daughter, she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. Dr. Malcolm Fraser, interviewed in the conservatory, was reserved, his answers measured. Sir Reginald was under strain, he admitted. I noticed his agitation at dinner, but he dismissed my concern. As a doctor, I could see he was not himself. When pressed about his own movements, Fraser claimed to have been in his room reading at the time of the disappearance. Miss Clara Wentworth, ever the observer, was more forthcoming. I saw Sir Reginald arguing with someone in the garden yesterday afternoon, she confided, her pen poised over her notebook. I couldn't hear the words, but he was furious. The other man was tall, dark-haired, possibly Mr. Langston. Victor Langston himself, when questioned, was charming but evasive. Arguing? Nonsense, he said with a laugh. Sir Reginald and I discussed politics, nothing more. He was worried about a vote in Parliament, but he didn't confide details. His alibi was vague. He claimed to have been walking the grounds alone when the scream was heard. As the interviews concluded, Poirot gathered the guests in the drawing room. Mes amis, he said, his voice calm but commanding. Sir Reginald Ashford has not been taken by chance. Someone in this house knows more than they have revealed. I urge you to speak now before the net of truth tightens. The room fell silent, but the air was thick with unspoken accusations. Lord Cavendish's eyes narrowed. Lady Beatrice bit her lip, and Miss Wentworth scribbled furiously. Dr. Fraser's hands twitched, and Victor Langston's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. That evening, as Poirot and Hastings reviewed the day's findings, a new discovery emerged. A maid, trembling with fear, approached Poirot in the hallway. "Sir, I found this in the laundry," she whispered, handing him a blood-stained handkerchief embroidered with the initials P.C. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Merci, mademoiselle, this is most illuminating," Hastings gasped. "P.C. Percival Cavendish. Poirot, this could be evidence of foul play. Or," Poirot said, his voice soft, "it could be another thread in the tapestry of deception. We must proceed with care, Hastings. The truth, it is close, but it is cunning." As the second night descended on Blackthorn Manor, the mystery deepened, and Poirot's little gray cells worked tirelessly, piecing together the fragments of a crime that was far more intricate than it appeared. Chapter 3. The Arrival of Hercule Poirot. The morning sun filtered through the heavy drapes of Blackthorn Manor, casting a pale glow over the somber gathering in the drawing room. The guests, still reeling from Sir Reginald Ashford's disappearance, sat in uneasy silence, their eyes darting between one another as if each suspected the other of harboring dark secrets. The discovery of the blood-stained handkerchief, embroidered with the initials P.C., had sent a ripple of unease through the household, and whispers of foul play hung in the air like a persistent fog. Captain Hastings, standing by the fireplace, felt the weight of the mystery pressing upon him. His soldier's instincts urging action, yet his trust in Hercule Poirot's methodical approach held him in check. Poirot himself stood at the center of the room, his small, immaculate figure a stark contrast to the grandeur of the manor. His black patent leather shoes gleamed, his mustache was perfectly symmetrical, and his green eyes sparkled with an intensity that belied his calm demeanor. He had arrived at Blackthorn Manor not by chance, but at the behest of Sir Reginald's urgent letter, delivered to Hastings days earlier. The letter had hinted at a matter of grave importance, though its details remained maddeningly vague. Now, with Sir Reginald gone, Poirot's presence took on an almost providential air, as if fate had summoned the great detective to unravel the tangled threads of this enigma. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice soft yet commanding. "The disappearance of Sir Reginald Ashford is no mere accident. It is a puzzle carefully constructed with pieces that fit together only when viewed with the clarity of logic. I, Hercule Poirot, have been called to this place, and I shall not rest until the truth is revealed." Lady Eleanor Ashford, seated on a velvet settee, clasped her hands tightly, her face pale. "Monsieur Poirot, you must find him. Reginald he is everything to me. If he has been harmed—" Her voice broke and she pressed a handkerchief to her lips. Poirot inclined his head, his expression one of gentle reassurance. "Madame, I assure you I shall leave no stone unturned. But first I must understand the man himself, his habits, his fears, his secrets. Tell me, when did you last see your husband?" Lady Eleanor hesitated, her eyes flickering to the window. "It was just before dinner at 6:30. He was in his study reading. He seemed preoccupied, but he kissed my cheek and promised to join us shortly. When he didn't, I thought perhaps he was delayed by work. Then came the scream." Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. "And this scream, madame, it came from whom?" I don't know," she admitted. "I was in the dining room, but it sounded like it came from upstairs. I ran to the study and found it, as you saw it." Hastings, unable to contain himself, interjected. "Poirot, the broken window, the scattered papers, it's clear someone forced their way in and took him. Perhaps bandits or—" Poirot raised a hand, silencing his friend. "Patience, Hastings. The window, it tells a story, but not the one you imagine. Let us proceed methodically. I wish to speak with each of you alone to establish the events of last night. Every detail, no matter how small, is of consequence." The interviews began in the library, a room lined with leather-bound volumes and heavy oak furniture. Lord Percival Cavendish was the first to face Poirot's scrutiny. The financier sat stiffly, his cold blue eyes meeting Poirot's with a hint of defiance. "I was in my room dressing for dinner at the time of the scream," he said. "Beatrice can confirm it. As for the handkerchief, I've no idea how it came to be in the laundry. I have several, and one might have been misplaced." Poirot's smile was polite but probing. "Misplaced, monsieur, with blood upon it?" Tell me, what was your relationship with Sir Reginald? Cavendish's jaw tightened. We were acquaintances, nothing more. He invited me to discuss investments. I had no quarrel with him. Lady Beatrice, interviewed next, was a study in fragility. Her delicate hands trembled as she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Percival was with me, Monsieur Poirot. We were together until we heard the scream. Sir Reginald was kind to me always. I can't imagine who would wish him harm. Her eyes, however, darted nervously to the door, as if she feared her husband's return. Dr. Malcolm Fraser, the neurologist, was next. His reserved demeanor gave way to a quiet intensity as he spoke. I was in the billiard room alone, practicing my shots. I heard the scream at precisely 9 o'clock. I noted the time on my pocket watch. I ran upstairs with the others and saw the study in disarray. As a doctor, I can tell you that blood on a handkerchief does not necessarily mean violence. It could be from a nosebleed, a cut. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And yet, monsieur, you did not mention this possibility last night. Why? Fraser hesitated. I didn't wish to alarm anyone further. Miss Clara Wentworth, the novelist, was a whirlwind of nervous energy. I was in the drawing room sketching out a scene for my next book, she said, her pen tapping against her notebook. I heard the scream and rushed upstairs. Oh, Monsieur Poirot, it's just like one of my novels. But I saw something odd earlier. Sir Reginald and Mr. Langston in the garden speaking in low voices. It seemed heated. Victor Langston, the political aide, was the last to be questioned. His boyish charm was undimmed, but his eyes held a guarded quality. I was on the terrace smoking a cigarette when the scream came, he said. As for the garden, yes, I spoke with Sir Reginald. It was about a parliamentary matter, nothing serious. He was anxious, but he wouldn't say why. Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but incisive. And this matter, Monsieur Langston, it required you to meet at 3 o'clock yesterday, as noted in Sir Reginald's timetable. Langston's smile faltered. Yes, we met briefly. It was routine. Routine, Poirot repeated, his tone laced with skepticism. We shall see. As the interviews concluded, Poirot retreated to the study where he examined the scene once more. The blood-stained handkerchief, now safely in his possession, was a tantalizing clue, but he suspected it was a distraction. He knelt by the desk, his fingers tracing the lock, which showed no signs of tampering. The missing letter mentioned by Lady Eleanor gnawed at him. What had it contained, and why had it been taken? Hastings, hovering nearby, could not resist. Poirot, this is maddening. Everyone has an alibi, yet someone must be lying. That handkerchief points to Cavendish, but he seems too obvious a suspect. Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. The obvious, Hastings, is rarely the truth. The handkerchief, it is a clue, but not in the way you think. Consider the alibis, each so neatly timed, so perfectly accounted for. Too perfect, perhaps. The scream at 9 o'clock, the broken window, the missing letter. These are pieces of a puzzle, but the picture they form is not yet clear. That afternoon, Poirot requested a map of the manor from the butler, a stoic man named Jenkins. The map revealed the layout of the house. The study was on the second floor, accessible by a main staircase and a narrower servant's stair. The window overlooked a steep drop to the lawn below, with no visible ladder or rope marks. No one could have climbed out without leaving a trace, Hastings remarked. Precisely, Poirot said, and yet the window was broken from within. Why? As the day drew to a close, Poirot gathered the guests once more. Mes amis, I have begun to unravel the threads of this mystery, but I warn you, the truth, it is like a shadow. It moves when you approach, and only the patient eye will catch it. Tomorrow we shall delve deeper. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, their masks of composure slipping. Blackthorn Manor, once a haven of elegance, now felt like a gilded cage, and Hercule Poirot, with his unerring logic, was closing in on the truth. Chapter 4. The questions deepen. The morning at Blackthorn Manor dawned with a heavy mist that clung to the Sussex hills, shrouding the estate in a veil of mystery that mirrored the enigma of Sir Reginald Ashford's disappearance. The guests, summoned by Hercule Poirot to the drawing-room, sat in tense silence, their faces etched with varying shades of apprehension. The blood-stained handkerchief, the broken window, and the missing letter had cast a pall over the gathering, and the knowledge that a great detective was among them only heightened their unease. Captain Hastings, standing by the tall windows, watched the mist swirl across the lawn, his mind racing with questions, while Poirot, seated in a high-backed chair, exuded an air of serene authority. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice precise and measured. The disappearance of Sir Reginald is not a simple matter of chance or violence. It is a puzzle meticulously crafted, and to solve it we must examine the smallest details, the gestures, the words, the silences. Today I shall ask questions, and I expect answers that are truthful, for the truth it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot. Lady Eleanor Ashford, her auburn hair pinned tightly, gripped the arms of her chair. Monsieur Poirot, I have told you all I know. Reginald was troubled, yes, but he kept his worries from me. That letter, whatever it contained, it must hold the key. Poirot's green eyes fixed on her, unblinking. Madame, you say the letter was locked in his desk, yet the desk was found open and the letter gone. Tell me, who else had access to the study? Lady Eleanor hesitated, her gaze flickering to the floor. Only the servants, I suppose. Jenkins, the butler, and the maids, but they are loyal. Reginald trusted them implicitly. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. And yet trust, it can be misplaced. Let us proceed. The detectives' interviews began in earnest, each guest summoned to the library for a private audience. Poirot's method was deceptively simple. He asked seemingly innocuous questions, noting every pause, every glance, every subtle shift in posture. Hastings, permitted to observe, marveled at his friend's ability to transform a casual conversation into a psychological dissection. Lord Percival Cavendish was the first to face Poirot's scrutiny again. The financier's cold demeanor had softened slightly, replaced by a wary tension. I've told you, Poirot, I was with Beatrice when the scream was heard, he said, his voice clipped. As for the handkerchief, it's absurd to think I'd leave such a thing lying about if I were involved. Poirot tilted his head, his mustache twitching. Monsieur, you are a man of precision, are you not? A man who plans his investments with care. Tell me, did Sir Reginald ever discuss a financial matter that troubled him? Perhaps a deal gone wrong? Cavendish's eyes narrowed. He mentioned a venture, a railway project in the colonies. He was hesitant, said it carried risks. I advised him to withdraw, but he was stubborn, that's all. Poirot made a note in his small leather-bound book. And this railway project, it involved others in this house, perhaps. Cavendish stiffened. I don't know what you mean. Next came Lady Beatrice, her delicate frame trembling as she sat across from Poirot. "I swear, Monsieur Poirot, Percival and I were together. I heard nothing until the scream. Sir Reginald was so kind. He spoke to me about my painting, encouraged me. I can't believe he's gone." Her voice broke and she dabbed at her eyes with a lace handkerchief, notably free of bloodstains. Poirot's tone was gentle but probing. "Madame, you are an artist, oui? You observe the world closely. Did you notice anything unusual yesterday? Perhaps a look, a word between Sir Reginald and another guest?" Lady Beatrice hesitated, her fingers twisting the handkerchief. I saw him speaking with Mr. Langston in the garden, as Miss Wentworth mentioned. They seemed agitated, but I was too far to hear. And I saw Dr. Fraser watching them from the terrace. He looked concerned. Dr. Malcolm Fraser, when questioned, maintained his reserved composure. "I was on the terrace, yes, but only to take the air," he said. "I saw Sir Reginald and Langston, but it was a passing glance. As for my own movements, I was in the billiard room, as I told you. I'm a scientist, Monsieur Poirot. I deal in facts, not speculation." Poirot's smile was faint. "And yet, monsieur, facts can be arranged to deceive. Tell me, as a neurologist, did you observe any signs of distress in Sir Reginald beyond his agitation?" Fraser paused, his hands clasped tightly. He was pale, his hands trembled slightly, a possible sign of nervous strain. I offered to examine him, but he declined. Miss Clara Wentworth, ever eager to contribute, leaned forward when her turn came. "Monsieur Poirot, I've been thinking," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "The scream, it wasn't just a scream, it was deliberate, almost theatrical. I've written scenes like this, you know. Someone wanted us to hear it, to rush upstairs." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "An interesting observation, mademoiselle. And what else have you written in that notebook of yours?" Clara flushed. "Just impressions. The way Lord Cavendish grips his cane as if he's angry. The way Lady Beatrice avoids her husband's gaze. Little things. Victor Langston, the last to be questioned, exuded confidence, though his charm seemed strained. "I've nothing to hide, Poirot," he said. "Sir Reginald and I discussed a political matter, a vote in Parliament. He was worried about its implications, but he didn't elaborate. As for the garden, it was a brief talk, nothing more." Poirot leaned forward, his voice soft but incisive. "And yet, monsieur, your name appears in his timetable. VL, urgent." "Why urgent?" Langston's smile flickered. "A figure of speech. He was always dramatic." After the interviews, Poirot and Hastings returned to the study where the detective examined the scene with renewed intensity. He knelt by the window, studying the splintered frame. "Hastings," he said, "observe the glass. It is shattered outward, as I noted, but the shards are uneven. Some are large, some small. This was not a single blow, it was deliberate, staged." Hastings frowned. "Staged? But why?" "To mislead," Poirot replied. "The kidnapper, or the one who wishes us to believe in a kidnapping, has crafted a scene. But there is one detail they could not control." He pointed to a small, almost invisible scratch on the windowsill, barely discernible in the morning light. "This mark, it is fresh. Something was dragged across it, a rope, perhaps, or a tool." Hastings gasped. "A rope? So someone did climb out?" "Or in," Poirot corrected. "We must consider all possibilities." The afternoon brought a new discovery. Jenkins, the butler, approached Poirot with a grave expression. "Sir, I found this in the servants' quarters," he said, producing a small vial labeled chloroform. It was half empty, its cap loosely fastened. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Chloroform, you say? This is most significant. Where exactly was it found?" "In the laundry room, sir, behind a basket," Jenkins replied. "It's not something we keep in the house." Hastings' eyes widened. "Chloroform, Poirot, this proves it. Sir Reginald was drugged and taken." Poirot held up a hand. "Calm yourself, Hastings. The vial, it is another clue, but it raises questions. Why leave it where it could be found? Why not dispose of it entirely? No, this is another piece of the performance." As the day drew to a close, Poirot gathered the guests once more. "Mes amis, the net of truth tightens. A letter is missing, a window is broken, a handkerchief is stained with blood, and now a vial of chloroform appears. Someone in this house knows more than they have admitted. I urge you to speak, for the little gray cells of Hercule Poirot are never deceived." The guests shifted uncomfortably, their alibis and assurances ringing hollow in the face of Poirot's relentless scrutiny. Blackthorn Manor, once a bastion of civility, now felt like a battlefield of secrets, and Poirot was closing in on the truth, one meticulous question at a time. Chapter 5. The Red Herrings. The mist that had cloaked Blackthorn Manor the previous day had lifted, revealing a crisp, clear morning that did little to dispel the oppressive atmosphere within the estate's ancient walls. The guests, summoned once more to the drawing-room, sat in a tense semicircle, their faces betraying a mix of exhaustion and suspicion. The discovery of the chloroform vial had intensified the sense of foreboding, and the blood-stained handkerchief with the initials P.C. had cast a shadow over Lord Percival Cavendish, who now sat with a rigid posture, his cold blue eyes fixed on Hercule Poirot. Captain Hastings, standing by the mantelpiece, felt his pulse quicken, certain that the evidence pointed to a sinister plot. Yet Poirot, seated with his hands folded neatly, exuded an air of calm certainty, as if the chaos of the mystery only sharpened his focus. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice smooth as polished glass. "The disappearance of Sir Reginald Ashford is a tapestry, woven with deliberate threads of deception. The handkerchief, the chloroform, the broken window, these are not accidents but red herrings designed to lead us astray. Hercule Poirot, however, is not so easily misled. Today we shall uncover more of the truth, but I warn you, the one who hides it watches us closely." Lady Eleanor Ashford, her face pale and drawn, clutched a cup of tea that had long gone cold. "Monsieur Poirot, you speak of deception, but who would do such a thing? Reginald was a good man respected by all. Why create such a charade?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Madame, the why is the heart of this mystery. A man does not vanish without reason, nor does a scene of chaos appear without purpose. Let us examine the evidence anew." The morning's investigation began with a return to the study, where Poirot meticulously retraced his steps. The broken window, the scattered papers, and the open desk drawer remained as they had been, but Poirot's attention was drawn to a small, overlooked detail. A single cigarette butt half hidden beneath the rug near the desk. He picked it up with a pair of tweezers, examining it closely. "Hastings," he said, "in this cigarette it is of a Turkish blend, most distinctive. Did Sir Reginald smoke?" Hastings shook his head. "Not that I know of. Lady Eleanor mentioned he disliked the habit." "Précisément," Poirot murmured. "Then this belongs to another. We must inquire who favors such a brand." The detective's next move was to summon Jenkins, the butler, who stood stiffly in the study doorway, his face a mask of professional neutrality. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot said, holding up the cigarette butt. "This was found in the study. Do any of the guests smoke Turkish cigarettes?" Jenkins hesitated, his eyes flickering. "Mr. Langston, sir. I've seen him with such cigarettes on the terrace. No one else, to my knowledge." Hastings' eyes widened. Langston. Poirot, this could be the link. His meeting with Sir Reginald, the argument in the garden, and now this. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "A link, perhaps, but not the chain. We must proceed with care." The interviews resumed, but this time Poirot's questions were sharper, designed to provoke. Lord Cavendish, confronted with the handkerchief, grew indignant. "I tell you, Poirot, it's a plant. Someone is trying to frame me. I've no reason to harm Sir Reginald. Our business was purely professional." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "And yet, monsieur, you advised him to withdraw from a railway project. Was this advice given freely, or did it serve your own interests?" Cavendish's face reddened. "I'm a businessman, not a murderer. The project was risky. Anyone would have said the same." Lady Beatrice, questioned next, seemed on the verge of collapse. "I swear, Monsieur Poirot, Percival had nothing to do with this. That handkerchief. It could belong to anyone with those initials. Please, you must believe me." Her voice trembled and her eyes darted to the door as if expecting her husband's wrath. Poirot's tone softened. "Madame, fear is a heavy burden. If you know something, speak now and Hercule Poirot will protect you." She shook her head, tears welling. "I know nothing. I only want this nightmare to end." Dr. Malcolm Fraser, when shown the cigarette butt, denied smoking altogether. "I'm a doctor, Monsieur Poirot. I avoid such habits. As for Sir Reginald, I told you he was under strain. Perhaps he was involved in something dangerous, something he couldn't share." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "And you, monsieur, were you not on the terrace watching his conversation with Mr. Langston? What did you see?" Fraser's hands clenched. "I saw nothing unusual. Two men talking, that's all." Miss Clara Wentworth, ever observant, seized on the new clue. "Turkish cigarettes. Oh, Monsieur Poirot, that's Mr. Langston's brand. I've seen him light one at least twice. And the way he looked at Sir Reginald in the garden, there was something predatory about it." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "Your eyes, mademoiselle, they see much. But do they see the truth or the shadow of it?" Victor Langston, when confronted with the cigarette butt, laughed lightly. "Guilty as charged, Poirot. I smoke Turkish cigarettes. Hardly a crime. I may have smoked in the study earlier that day when I met Sir Reginald. But I assure you, I left him alive and well." Poirot's voice was soft but unyielding. "And this meeting, monsieur, at 3 o'clock, marked as urgent. What was its purpose?" Langston shrugged. "A political discussion, as I said. Sir Reginald was worried about a vote in Parliament. He asked for my advice, nothing more." The interviews concluded, but the cigarette butt and the chloroform vial had shifted suspicion toward Langston, whose charm now seemed a thin veneer over something darker. Hastings, pacing the library, was convinced. "Poirot, it's obvious. Langston's the culprit. His cigarette, his meeting, his evasive answers. He must have drugged Sir Reginald and staged the kidnapping." Poirot raised a hand, his eyes gleaming. "Obvious, Hastings? None. The obvious is the trap, the cigarette, the chloroform. They are too convenient, too neatly placed." Someone wishes us to suspect Monsieur Langston just as the handkerchief points to Monsieur Cavendish. These are red herrings designed to distract from the true path. That afternoon, Poirot requested a detailed timeline of the evening's events from Jenkins, who provided a meticulous account of the guests' movements. According to the butler, dinner began at 7:30 with Sir Reginald absent. The scream was heard at 9 o'clock, and all guests claimed to be in their stated locations. Cavendish and Beatrice in their room, Fraser in the billiard room, Wentworth in the drawing room, and Langston on the terrace. Yet Poirot's attention lingered on the servants' stair, a narrow passage leading to the study, accessible only from the back of the house. "Observe, Hastings," Poirot said, standing at the foot of the stair. "This passage, it is hidden, discreet. Someone could have entered the study unseen without passing through the main hall." Hastings frowned. "But the scream, surely it came from the study." "Or," Poirot said, "it came from elsewhere to draw us to the study. The scream, the window, the chloroform, all are part of a performance, but the script is not yet clear." As evening fell, a new development emerged. A gardener summoned by Poirot reported finding a torn piece of paper in the rose beds beneath the study window. It was a fragment of a letter written in Sir Reginald's hand, containing only a few words. "Must be stopped. Betrayal." The rest was illegible, scorched as if partially burned. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "This, Hastings, is no red herring. This is a thread of truth. Sir Reginald knew something dangerous, and someone ensured that knowledge would not leave this house." The guests, informed of the new clue, grew restless. Langston's charm faltered, Cavendish's temper flared, and Lady Beatrice's tears flowed freely. Blackthorn Manor, once a haven of elegance, now felt like a pressure cooker, and Poirot's relentless pursuit of the truth was turning up the heat. Chapter 6. A Clue in Detail. The sun hung low over Blackthorn Manor, casting long shadows across the estate's manicured lawns, as if the very grounds were conspiring to conceal the secrets within. The discovery of the torn letter fragment, with its ominous words of betrayal and must be stopped, had sent a fresh wave of unease through the household. The guests, now painfully aware of Hercule Poirot's relentless scrutiny, moved about with guarded glances, their polite facades crumbling under the weight of suspicion. Captain Hastings, pacing the library where Poirot had set up his temporary headquarters, felt the mystery tightening around them like a noose, each clue a knot in the rope. Poirot, seated at a polished mahogany table, examined the letter fragment with a magnifying glass, his small, meticulous hands steady as stone. The paper, scorched at the edges, bore Sir Reginald's distinctive script, and the words, though few, carried a weight that suggested a deeper conspiracy. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with the intensity of a man who had found a crack in the wall of deception. "Hastings," he said, his voice soft but vibrant with purpose. "This fragment, it is not merely a clue. It is a window into the mind of Sir Reginald Ashford. He knew something so dangerous that it cost him his freedom, perhaps his life. But the question remains, who did he seek to stop, and why?" Hastings, his brow furrowed, leaned over the table. "Poirot, it's clear as day. Langston's involved. The Turkish cigarette, his meeting with Sir Reginald, and now this talk of betrayal. He's the Prime Minister's aide. After all, politics is full of treachery." Poirot's mustache twitched with amusement. Mon ami, you are quick to accuse but slow to observe. The cigarette, it is too obvious, as is the handkerchief of Monsieur Cavendish. These clues, they are placed to mislead. No, the truth lies in the subtleties, in a detail overlooked by the careless eye. The detective rose, his movements precise, and gestured for Hastings to follow him to the study once more. The room, now familiar yet still unsettling, held the echoes of the night Sir Reginald vanished. Poirot's attention was drawn to the desk, where the open drawer had revealed no letter but had yielded the crumpled timetable with the cryptic VL urgent entry. He knelt, examining the drawer's lock again, his fingers tracing its smooth surface. "Observe, Hastings," he said, pointing to a faint scratch near the lock, barely visible in the morning light. "This mark, it is not the work of a key but of a tool, perhaps a hairpin or a thin blade. The desk was opened with care, not force. Whoever took the letter knew exactly where to look." Hastings' eyes widened. "A hairpin? That points to a woman. Lady Eleanor, perhaps, or Lady Beatrice?" Poirot shook his head. "Do not leap, Hastings. A hairpin is not proof of gender, only of method. We must consider all possibilities." The morning's investigation took a new turn when Poirot requested to inspect the servants' quarters, particularly the laundry room where the chloroform vial had been found. Jenkins, the butler, led them to a small, tidy space at the back of the house, where baskets of linen stood neatly stacked. Poirot's eyes scanned the room, settling on a narrow shelf above the baskets. There, half hidden behind a tin of starch, was a single glove. Fine leather, embroidered with the initial B. "B," Hastings exclaimed. "Beatrice? But why would she hide a glove here?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Or perhaps it is not hidden but placed. Another red herring, perhaps, or a genuine slip. We shall see." Returning to the library, Poirot summoned the guests for further questioning, this time focusing on their movements in the hours before the scream. Lady Eleanor, her composure fraying, reiterated her story. She had been in the dining room overseeing the final preparations for dinner when Sir Reginald failed to appear. "I thought he was delayed by work," she said, her voice trembling. "He often lost track of time in his study." Poirot's gaze was gentle but unrelenting. "Madam, you mentioned a letter that troubled him. Did he ever speak of a betrayal, perhaps within his circle of acquaintances?" Lady Eleanor's hands clenched. He hinted at something, yes. He said, 'There are those who smile while they scheme.' I thought he meant politics, but now I don't know." Lord Cavendish, questioned next, was brusque. "I've told you, Poirot, I was with Beatrice. As for this glove nonsense, I've never seen it before. Someone's playing a game, and I don't appreciate being the target." Lady Beatrice, when shown the glove, gasped, her face paling. "That's mine! But I lost it days ago, I swear it. Someone must have taken it." Her eyes darted to her husband, then away, as if fearing his reaction. Dr. Fraser, ever composed, denied any knowledge of the glove or chloroform. "I was in the billiard room, as I said. I deal in science, not intrigue. If Sir Reginald was betrayed, it was likely political. Langston's the one to watch." Miss Clara Wentworth, her novelist's curiosity undimmed, leaned forward eagerly. "A glove with a B. Oh, Monsieur Poirot, it's like something out of my books, but I saw Lady Beatrice drop a glove in the hall yesterday morning. It could have been picked up by anyone." Victor Langston, confronted with the cigarette butt again, maintained his charm. I've admitted to smoking in the study earlier that day, Poirot. As for betrayal, Sir Reginald was worried about a political maneuver, but he didn't name names. I'm as baffled as you are. Poirot's questions grew sharper, probing inconsistencies. He asked each guest to recount their exact movements between 6 and 9 o'clock the previous evening, noting the times with precision. Lady Eleanor claimed to have been in the dining room from 6:30 onward. Cavendish and Beatrice said they were in their room from 7 until the scream at 9. Fraser placed himself in the billiard room from 8. Wentworth was in the drawing room writing from 6:45. Langston claimed to have been on the terrace from 8:30. These alibis, Poirot murmured to Hastings later. They are too precise, too polished. Someone has rehearsed their story, but there is a flaw, a detail that does not align. That afternoon, Poirot requested a detailed map of the manor's grounds from Jenkins, who provided a hand-drawn sketch. The study window, overlooking the rose beds, was a 20-foot drop to the ground, with no ladder or rope marks. Yet the letter fragment found in the roses suggested someone had been there. Poirot's attention turned to a narrow path leading from the rose beds to a small gardener's shed, barely visible from the house. Inside the shed, Poirot found another clue, a single rose petal, crushed and stained with a faint trace of blood. "This," he said, holding it up, "is no accident. The blood, it is fresh, and the petal, it matches those beneath the study window. Someone was here, Hastings, after the scream." Hastings' mind raced. But who? And why the shed? Poirot's eyes gleamed. To hide, perhaps, or to wait. The shed, it is a place of concealment, yet it is close to the house. We must consider the timing. The scream at 9, the letter fragment, the blood. All are connected. As evening fell, Poirot gathered the guests in the drawing room, his presence commanding silence. Mes amis, les indices se multiplient, mais les mensonges se multiplient aussi. A glove, a cigarette, a vial, a letter fragment, each points to a different hand, yet all are part of the same design. I urge the one who knows the truth to speak, for the little gray cells of Hercule Poirot are closing in. The guests exchanged uneasy glances, their secrets weighing heavier with each passing hour. Blackthorn Manor, once a bastion of civility, now felt like a stage where every actor played a part, and Poirot was determined to unmask the director of this deadly drama. Chapter 7. More lies surface. The air in Blackthorn Manor grew stifling as the third day of Sir Reginald Ashford's disappearance dawned, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on the household like a gathering storm. The rose petals stained with blood found in the gardener's shed had added a chilling new dimension to the mystery, suggesting that the events of that fateful night were far more sinister than a mere kidnapping. The guests, now thoroughly rattled by Hercule Poirot's relentless probing, moved through the manor with the wariness of cornered animals, their polite masks slipping to reveal glimpses of fear, guilt, and desperation. Captain Hastings, standing by the library window, watched the wind stir the trees outside, his mind tangled with the mounting clues. The blood-stained handkerchief, the chloroform vial, the Turkish cigarette, the letter fragment, and now the bloodied petal. Each seemed to point in a different direction, yet Poirot remained serene, his little gray cells weaving a pattern only he could see. Poirot, seated at the library table, was examining the rose petal under his magnifying glass, his expression one of intense concentration. Hastings, he said, his voice soft but vibrant with purpose. This petal. It is a whisper of truth in a chorus of lies. The blood, it is fresh, and the petal, it comes from the roses beneath the study window. Someone was there after the scream, and they left this trace in their haste. Hastings frowned, his hands clasped behind his back. But Poirot, who? Langston's cigarette, Cavendish's handkerchief, Beatrice's glove. It's as if everyone's involved. And now this petal suggests someone fled to the shed. Could it be a servant, perhaps? Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. A servant, mon ami? Possible, but unlikely. The servants, they are loyal to Lady Eleanor, and their movements are accounted for. No, this is the work of someone with motive, someone with secrets. We must dig deeper into the lies that hide beneath the surface. The morning's investigation began with a return to the gardener's shed, a small, weathered structure tucked behind a row of yew hedges. Poirot, accompanied by Hastings and Jenkins, examined the interior with meticulous care. The shed was cluttered with tools, sacks of soil, and a small bench, but Poirot's attention was drawn to a patch of disturbed earth near the door. Kneeling, he brushed away the dirt to reveal a small silver cufflink engraved with the initials M.F. "Malcolm Fraser," Hastings exclaimed. "Poirot, this is damning. First Cavendish, then Langston, now Fraser. Everyone's leaving clues." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Or, Hastings, someone wishes us to believe so. This cufflink, like the handkerchief and the glove, is too convenient. But it tells us something. The shed was used, and recently. We must learn why." Returning to the manor, Poirot summoned the guests to the drawing room, where the atmosphere was thick with tension. Lady Eleanor, her face pale, clutched a shawl as if it were a lifeline. Lord Cavendish's jaw was set, his eyes burning with barely concealed anger. Lady Beatrice sat close to her husband, her hands trembling. Dr. Fraser maintained his reserved demeanor, though his fingers twitched nervously. Miss Clara Wentworth scribbled furiously in her notebook, her eyes darting between the guests. Victor Langston, his charm now strained, leaned casually against the fireplace, but his smile was brittle. "Mes amis," Poirot said, holding up the cufflink. "Another clue has surfaced, this time bearing the initials M.F. I ask you now to speak plainly, for the web of lies grows ever more tangled. Dr. Fraser, this cufflink, does it belong to you?" Fraser's composure faltered for a moment, his eyes narrowing. It could be mine. I lost a pair some time ago, but I haven't been to the shed, Monsieur Poirot, I swear it." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And yet, monsieur, the evidence suggests otherwise. Let us revisit your movements. You claim to have been in the billiard room at 9 o'clock when the scream was heard. Can anyone confirm this?" Fraser hesitated. "Number I was alone. But I heard the scream and ran upstairs with the others," Miss Wentworth interjected, her voice eager. "I saw Dr. Fraser in the hall just before 9, Monsieur Poirot. He was coming from the direction of the terrace, not the billiard room." Fraser's face reddened. "That's absurd." "I was in the billiard room, you must be mistaken." Poirot's smile was faint but incisive. "Mistakes, they are rare with Mademoiselle Wentworth's observant eye. Let us consider another matter. Lady Beatrice, your glove found in the laundry room. Can you explain how it came to be there?" Lady Beatrice's eyes filled with tears. "I told you I lost it days ago. Someone must have taken it. I don't know why." Her voice broke, and she glanced at her husband, who remained silent, his expression unreadable. Lord Cavendish, when pressed, grew belligerent. "This is a witch hunt, Poirot. First my handkerchief, now Beatrice's glove and Fraser's cufflink. Someone is planting these items to sow discord. I demand you focus on the real culprit, Langston with his cigarette and his secret meeting." Langston laughed, though his eyes were wary. "Me? Cavendish, you're grasping at straws. I've admitted to the cigarette, to the meeting. I've nothing to hide." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the room. "Enough. The accusations, they fly like arrows, but they miss the mark. Let us turn to another matter, the letter fragment with its talk of betrayal. Lady Eleanor, you said Sir Reginald spoke of those who smile while they scheme. Did he name anyone?" Lady Eleanor's hands trembled. "No, he didn't, but he was distant with Lord Cavendish lately. And he mentioned Mr. Langston's name once in anger, though he wouldn't say why." Cavendish's face darkened, but before he could speak, Poirot turned to Langston. "And you, monsieur, you claim your meeting was routine. Yet Sir Reginald marked it as urgent." "Why?" Langston's smile faltered. He was concerned about a political rival. He thought someone was undermining the Prime Minister. I advised him to stay calm, but he was adamant." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And this rival, did he name them?" "No," Langston said quickly. "He was vague, as always." The interviews revealed a web of hidden tensions. Cavendish's strained business dealings with Sir Reginald, Langston's political machinations, Fraser's curious presence on the terrace, and Beatrice's fear of her husband. Yet it was Miss Wentworth's observation that struck Poirot most. "Monsieur Poirot," she said quietly, "I've been thinking about the scream. It wasn't just loud, it was prolonged as if meant to be heard. And I saw Jenkins, the butler, near the servants' stair just before it happened." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "The servants' stair, you say? Most interesting." That afternoon, Poirot and Hastings examined the servants' stair, a narrow, dimly lit passage leading to the study. At the base of the stair, half hidden in a crack in the floorboards, Poirot found a small pearl earring, its delicate design suggesting it belonged to a woman of refinement. "Lady Eleanor, perhaps," Hastings suggested, "or Lady Beatrice." Poirot pocketed the earring, his expression unreadable. "Another clue, Hastings, but not yet a solution. The stair, the shed, the petal, they form a path, but to where?" As evening fell, Poirot gathered the guests once more. "Mes amis, les mensonges se multiplient, mais ainsi fait la vérité. A cufflink, an earring, a petal, each tells a story, but not the one you expect. Someone in this house knows what happened to Sir Reginald, and I, Hercule Poirot, am close to unmasking them." The guests exchanged fearful glances, their secrets unraveling under Poirot's unyielding gaze. Blackthorn Manor, once a haven of elegance, now felt like a house of mirrors where every reflection hid a lie and only Poirot could see the truth beyond the distortions. Chapter 8. The Emotional Turning Point. The fourth day at Blackthorn Manor dawned with a restless energy, as if the very walls of the Elizabethan estate were straining under the weight of its secrets. The discovery of the pearl earring on the servant's stair, coupled with the blood-stained rose petal, the chloroform vial, and the incriminating cufflink, had pushed the guests to the brink. Suspicion hung over the household like a dark cloud, and the once polished civility of the gathering had eroded into a tangle of accusations and fear. Captain Hastings, standing in the library where Hercule Poirot had made his base, felt a knot of frustration in his chest. The clues were mounting, Yet the truth seemed to slip further away with each revelation. Poirot, seated at the mahogany table, was arranging the clues before him like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. The letter fragment, the Turkish cigarette, the blood-stained handkerchief, the glove, the cufflink, the chloroform vial, and now the pearl earring. His small hands moved with deliberate precision, his green eyes gleaming with an intensity that suggested he was close to a breakthrough. "Hastings," he said, his voice low but vibrant. "We approach a turning point. The lies, they are cracking, and the truth, it begins to weep through the fissures. Today someone will break, and in their breaking we shall see the light." Hastings, pacing restlessly, shook his head. "Poirot, it's maddening. Everyone has a clue pointing to them. Cavendish's handkerchief, Langston's cigarette, Fraser's cufflink, Beatrice's glove, and now this earring, which could belong to Lady Eleanor or Beatrice. It's as if the whole house is conspiring." Poirot's moustache twitched with a faint smile. "Conspiracy, mon ami? Perhaps, but not in the way you imagine. The clues, they are too many, too neatly placed. Someone wishes to confuse us, but they have underestimated Hercule Poirot. The earring, it is significant not for who it belongs to, but for where it was found. The servant's stare, it is the key to the movement of our culprit. The morning began with Poirot summoning the guests to the drawing-room where the air was thick with tension. Lady Eleanor sat rigid, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. Lord Cavendish's face was a mask of barely controlled anger, while Lady Beatrice clung to his arm, her delicate features pale and strained. Dr. Fraser's reserved demeanor had given way to a nervous tick in his jaw, and Miss Clara Wentworth, though still scribbling in her notebook, seemed less eager, her eyes darting nervously. Victor Langston, his charm now a brittle facade, leaned against the mantelpiece, his fingers tapping restlessly. "Mes amis," Poirot said, holding up the pearl earring. "This was found on the servant's stair, a passage leading directly to Sir Reginald's study. It suggests that someone moved through this house, unseen at the time of his disappearance. I ask you now, whose earring is this?" Lady Eleanor gasped, her hand rising to her ear. It could be mine. I wear pearls often, but I haven't noticed one missing." "Surely it's a coincidence?" Lady Beatrice's voice trembled as she spoke. "I have similar earrings, Monsieur Poirot, but I swear I wasn't near the servant's stair. I was with Percival, as I told you." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. Madame, the truth, it is not served by protestations. Let us turn to another matter. Miss Wentworth, you observed Jenkins near the servant's stair before the scream. What was he doing?" Clara hesitated, her pen pausing. "He was, carrying a tray, I think. He seemed in a hurry, but I didn't think much of it at the time." Poirot turned to Jenkins, who stood by the door, his face impassive. "Monsieur Jenkins, you did not mention this movement. Why were you near the stair?" Jenkins' voice was steady, but his eyes flickered. "I was fetching a bottle of wine from the cellar, sir, for the dinner. The stair is the quickest route. I heard nothing unusual until the scream." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "Very well, but let us consider the timeline. The scream was heard at 9 o'clock, yet the study was found in disarray, the window broken, the letter gone. Someone was in that room and they left a trail, the petal, the earring, the cufflink. These are not accidents." The room fell silent, but the silence was shattered by a sudden sob. Lady Beatrice, her hands covering her face, collapsed into a chair, her body shaking. "I can't bear it any more," she cried. "Monsieur Poirot, I must tell you something. I lied about being with Percival the entire time. I went to the study just before dinner at 6:30. The room erupted in gasps. Lord Cavendish's face darkened, his hands clenching into fists. "Beatrice, what are you saying?" he demanded. Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but commanding. "Madame, speak plainly. Why did you go to the study and what did you see?" Beatrice's voice was barely audible, choked with tears. I wanted to speak to Sir Reginald privately. He had been so kind to me, and I was unhappy. Percival, he's so cold sometimes, and I thought Sir Reginald might advise me. But when I got there, he was arguing with someone, Mr. Langston, I think. I didn't hear much, only raised voices. I left quickly, afraid to be seen. Langston's face paled, his charm evaporating. "That's nonsense. I told you, Poirot, our meeting was at 3, not 6:30. She's mistaken or lying." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mistaken, Monsieur Langston? Or perhaps you omitted a second meeting. Madam, did you see anything else?" Beatrice hesitated, her eyes darting to her husband. I saw a letter on the desk, open with Sir Reginald's seal. It looked important, but I didn't read it. I swear I left him alive." Cavendish's voice was a low growl. "Beatrice, you've said enough. Poirot, this is absurd." She's upset, confused. Poirot's gaze shifted to Cavendish. "Monsieur, your wife's confession is a crack in the wall of lies. Let us see what else crumbles." "Dr. Fraser, you were seen on the terrace watching Sir Reginald and Mr. Langston. Did you witness this argument at 6:30? Fraser's jaw tightened. I may have seen them earlier, but not at 6:30. I was in the billiard room by then." Miss Wentworth interjected, her voice sharp. "But I saw you, Doctor Fraser, near the terrace at 6:45, looking toward the garden. You weren't in the billiard room then." Fraser's composure cracked, his voice rising. "I tell you, I was in the billiard room. This is a conspiracy to discredit me." Poirot's smile was faint but incisive. "A conspiracy, monsieur? Or the truth emerging at last?" Lady Beatrice's confession changes the timeline. We must now consider who else was near the study at 6:30 and why. The afternoon brought a new discovery. Poirot, examining the servant's stair once more, found a faint smudge of wax on the banister, as if a candle had dripped there. "Hastings," he said, "this wax, it is recent. Someone moved through this passage in darkness, perhaps to avoid detection. The earring, the wax, they point to a deliberate act." Hastings' mind raced. But who, Poirot? Beatrice's confession points to Langston, but Fraser's lie about his whereabouts is suspicious, and Cavendish, he's hiding something, I'm sure of it. Poirot nodded. "They all hide something, Hastings, but Lady Beatrice's tears, they are the first genuine note in this symphony of deception. She has given us a glimpse of the truth, and now we must follow it." As evening fell, Poirot gathered the guests once more, his presence commanding silence. "Mes amis, a lie has been exposed, and with it the foundation of this mystery trembles. Lady Beatrice has shown courage, but others still hide in the shadows. I urge you to speak, for the truth is near, and Hercule Poirot will not be denied." The guests sat in stunned silence, Lady Beatrice's sobs echoing faintly. Blackthorn Manor, once a bastion of elegance, now felt like a house on the edge of collapse, its secrets spilling forth under Poirot's unyielding gaze. Chapter 9. The Trap. The 5th day at Blackthorn Manor broke with a restless dawn, the sky streaked with clouds that mirrored the turmoil within the estate's ancient walls. Lady Beatrice's tearful confession had shattered the fragile veneer of civility among the guests, and the air was thick with accusation and dread. The pearl earring, the wax smudge on the servant's stair, the blood-stained rose petal and the mounting web of lies had brought the mystery to a boiling point. Captain Hastings, pacing the library where Hercule Poirot had established his command, felt a surge of anticipation. Poirot's methodical approach, once a source of frustration, now seemed poised to spring a trap on the guilty party. Poirot stood by the library window, his small frame silhouetted against the morning light, his hands clasped behind his back. His green eyes, sharp and unyielding, surveyed the room as if it held the final piece of the puzzle. The clues, the handkerchief, the cigarette, the glove, the cufflink, the chloroform vial, the letter fragment, the earring, and the wax, lay arranged on the table before him, each a thread in the intricate tapestry of deception he was unraveling. "Hastings," he said, his voice calm but laced with purpose, "today we set the trap. The guilty one, they grow careless under pressure, and Hercule Poirot will use this to draw them into the light." Hastings stopped pacing, his eyes wide. "A trap, Poirot? You mean to confront them all? But who do you suspect? Langston with his secret meeting, Cavendish with his temper, or Fraser lying about his whereabouts?" Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. "Patience, mon ami. The trap, it is not for one alone, but for all. Each guest hides a secret, but only one holds the key to Sir Reginald's fate. We must apply pressure, psychological and precise, to force the truth to surface." The morning began with Poirot requesting a private meeting with Jenkins, the butler, in the library. Jenkins, ever stoic, stood stiffly as Poirot questioned him about the wax smudge on the servant's stair. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot said, holding up a small vial of wax he had collected, "this wax, it is from a candle, oui? Yet the manor is well lit with electricity. Why would someone use a candle in the servants' passage?" Jenkins's face remained impassive, but his eyes flickered. "I cannot say, sir. Perhaps a servant was working late, checking the passages. The electricity, it sometimes flickers." Poirot's gaze was piercing. "And yet you did not mention this candle, nor your presence near the stair before the scream. Tell me, monsieur, what did you see that night?" Jenkins hesitated, then spoke carefully. "I saw nothing unusual, sir. I was in the cellar, as I said, fetching wine. I heard the scream and ran upstairs with the others." Poirot nodded, dismissing him but noting the slight tremor in his voice. "The butler, Hastings," he murmured. "He is loyal, but he knows more than he says. We shall return to him." The detective then gathered the guests in the drawing room, the tension palpable as they took their seats. Lady Eleanor, her face drawn, clutched a handkerchief, her eyes avoiding her guests. Lord Cavendish sat rigidly, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. Lady Beatrice, pale and trembling, stayed close to her husband, her confession still raw. Dr. Fraser's reserved demeanor was fraying, his fingers twitching nervously. Miss Clara Wentworth, her notebook open, watched the scene with a writer's fascination, though her usual vivacity was subdued. Victor Langston, his charm now a thin mask, leaned against the wall, his eyes wary. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice commanding silence. "The time for games is over. Sir Reginald Ashford is missing, perhaps dead, and the clues point to this room. A letter speaks of betrayal, a scream draws us to a stage scene, and objects, handkerchiefs, gloves, cufflinks, earrings, are left to mislead. But Hercule Poirot sees through the deception. I shall now lay a trap, and the guilty one will betray themselves. The guests shifted uneasily, their eyes darting to one another. Poirot held up the letter fragment, its scorched edges stark against his gloved hand. This fragment found in the rose bed speaks of a betrayal that Sir Reginald sought to stop. I believe one of you knows its contents. I propose a test. Tonight at 8 o'clock we shall recreate the events of the night Sir Reginald vanished. Each of you will take your stated position, Lord Cavendish and Lady Beatrice in their room, Dr. Fraser in the billiard room, Miss Wentworth in the drawing room, Mr. Langston on the terrace, and Lady Eleanor in the dining room. I shall be in the study waiting. Hastings gasped. Poirot, you mean to stage a reenactment? But what if the culprit strikes again? Poirot's smile was serene. That, Hastings, is the trap. The guilty one, they will act, and in acting they will reveal themselves. The day passed in a haze of anticipation, the guests moving like shadows through the manor. Poirot spent the afternoon examining the servants' stair once more, noting its proximity to the study and its concealment from the main house. He also inspected the rose beds where the letter fragment had been found and discovered a faint footprint in the soft earth. A man's shoe size 10 with a distinctive tread. This, he said to Hastings, is no gardener's boot. It belongs to someone who stood here, perhaps watching, perhaps waiting. As 8 o'clock approached, the guests took their positions, their faces taut with apprehension. Poirot, accompanied by Hastings, stood in the study, the broken window now boarded up, but the room otherwise unchanged. The detective's eyes scanned every detail, his posture alert. Listen, Hastings, he whispered. The house, it breathes. Every creak, every step, it tells a story. At precisely 9 o'clock, a scream pierced the silence, chillingly similar to the one that had signaled Sir Reginald's disappearance. The guests rushed to the study, their faces a mix of shock and fear. But Poirot was ready, his eyes darting to their reactions. Lady Eleanor arrived first, her breath ragged. Cavendish and Beatrice followed, his arm protectively around her. Fraser was next, his face pale, and Wentworth hurried in, her notebook clutched tightly. Langston was last, his expression unreadable. Mes amis, Poirot said, his voice cutting through the chaos. The scream. It was not from this room. It came from the servants' stair. Someone moved tonight as they did before, and they have left a trace. He led the group to the stair, where a fresh smudge of wax glistened on the banister, identical to the one found before. But there was more. A single thread, dark blue, caught on a splinter. Poirot held it up, his eyes gleaming. This thread, it is from a garment worn tonight. Who among you wears blue? The guests glanced at one another, their faces betraying guilt or confusion. Dr. Fraser, dressed in a navy suit, stiffened. That could be from anyone's clothing, he said quickly. Blue is common. Poirot's smile was sharp. Common, monsieur. Perhaps. But this thread, it matches the cuff of your jacket, which I observed earlier. You were not in the billiard room, were you? Fraser's face flushed, but before he could respond, Lady Eleanor gasped. Monsieur Poirot, I must confess. I was near the stair tonight. I couldn't bear the waiting, the fear. I wanted to check the study myself. The room fell silent, the guests staring at her. Poirot's gaze softened, but his voice was firm. Madam, Your courage is noted, but the trap has sprung, and the guilty one, they are close to exposure. Blackthorn Manor, its secrets unraveling, trembled under Poirot's unyielding scrutiny. The trap had been set, and the truth was clawing its way to the surface, ready to be revealed. Chapter 10. The Reveal. The atmosphere in Blackthorn Manor was electric with tension as the evening of the 5th day descended. The grand drawing room bathed in the flickering light of the chandelier. Hercule Poirot's staged reenactment had shaken the guests. The echo of the second scream and the discovery of the blue thread on the servant's stair igniting a firestorm of suspicion. The clues, the blood-stained handkerchief, the Turkish cigarette, the glove, the cufflink, the chloroform vial, the letter fragment, the pearl earring, the wax smudge, the bloodied rose petal, and now the thread, had woven a complex web, and Poirot stood at its center, his small, immaculate figure radiating authority. Captain Hastings, seated near the fireplace, felt his heart race, sensing that the moment of truth was at hand. The guests, gathered in a tense semicircle, awaited Poirot's next move, their faces a mosaic of fear, defiance, and guilt. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding, "the disappearance of Sir Reginald Ashford is no longer a mystery to Hercule Poirot. The clues so carefully placed have led me to the truth, a truth that is both simple and profound. Tonight I shall reveal what happened step by step, and the one responsible will be unmasked." Lady Eleanor Ashford, her hands trembling, leaned forward. "Monsieur Poirot, please, tell us, is Reginald alive? What have you found?" Poirot raised a hand, his green eyes gleaming. "Patience, madame. Let us begin at the beginning. Sir Reginald, a man of influence, was troubled by a letter that spoke of betrayal, a letter he kept locked in his desk. On the night of his disappearance, a scream drew us to his study, where we found chaos, a broken window, scattered papers, an open desk. But the scene, it was staged, designed to suggest a kidnapping. The glass, broken from within, the absence of rope or ladder marks. These tell us no one entered from outside. Sir Reginald did not leave through the window." Hastings gasped. "Then where did he go, Poirot?" Poirot's smile was serene. "He went nowhere, Hastings, at least not far. Let us consider the clues. The blood-stained handkerchief marked PC points to Lord Cavendish. The Turkish cigarette implicates Mr. Langston. The glove marked B suggests Lady Beatrice. The cufflink MF accuses Dr. Fraser. The pearl earring could belong to Lady Eleanor or Lady Beatrice. The chloroform vial, the wax smudge, the rose petal, the letter fragment, the blue thread. Each clue points to a different hand, yet all are part of the same design. This is no coincidence. Someone has orchestrated a symphony of deception to confuse us." Lord Cavendish's face darkened. "This is outrageous, Poirot! You accuse us all, yet offer no proof." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Proof, monsieur? It is before us in the contradictions of your stories. Let us reconstruct the night." At 6:30, Lady Beatrice visited the study and saw Sir Reginald arguing with Mr. Langston. She left, but the letter she saw on the desk was later taken. At 9, a scream was heard. Not from the study, but from the servant's stair, as our reenactment confirmed. The study was found in disarray, but Sir Reginald was gone. "Where?" He paused, letting the silence weigh on the room. "The servant's stair, it is the key. Narrow, hidden, it leads to the study and the back of the house. The wax smudge, the earring, the thread, these suggest movement through this passage, but why? to stage the scene, to hide, or to escape. And the bloodied rose petal found in the shed tells us someone fled there after the scream. Dr. Fraser's voice was sharp. You're spinning a tale, Poirot. What does this prove? Poirot turned to him, his eyes piercing. It proves, monsieur, that you lied. You were not in the billiard room at 9, as Miss Wentworth saw you near the terrace at 6:45, watching Sir Reginald and Mr. Langston. And the blue thread, it matches your jacket worn tonight during the reenactment. You were on the servants' stair, were you not? Fraser's face paled, his hands clenching. I was checking the house, ensuring all was secure. I heard the scream and ran upstairs. Poirot shook his head. Non, monsieur. You were in the study and you were not alone. Let us turn to the letter fragments. Must be stopped. Betrayal. Sir Reginald knew of a plot, a political betrayal that threatened the Prime Minister. He confided in Mr. Langston, his aide, but Langston, you were not his ally. You were the betrayer. Langston's charm evaporated, his eyes narrowing. That's preposterous. I advised him, nothing more. Poirot's voice was soft but unyielding. You advised him, oui, but you also acted. The cigarette left in the study was a mistake, your Turkish blend, smoked during your second meeting at 6:30, not 3. Lady Beatrice saw you and you knew she did. You staged the kidnapping to silence Sir Reginald using chloroform from the vial found in the laundry, but you needed help. He turned to Lady Eleanor, whose face drained of color. Madame, you loved your husband, but you feared his discovery. He spoke of betrayal, of those who smile while they scheme. You found the letter and confronted him. In your desperation, you turned to Dr. Fraser, a man with knowledge of chloroform and a motive to protect his own secrets. Lady Eleanor gasped, her hands rising to her mouth. No, Monsieur Poirot, I would never harm Reginald. Poirot's gaze softened, but his words were firm. You did not harm him, madame, but you helped conceal him. Sir Reginald is not dead. He is hidden here in the manor in a place only you and Dr. Fraser know. The servant's stair leads to a hidden room, a priest's hole from the manor's Elizabethan days accessible through a panel in the study. You drugged him with chloroform, with Fraser's assistance to keep him silent until the political vote passed. The scream, the broken window, the clues, they were all a distraction to buy time. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Fraser stood, his face ashen. This is insanity. You have no proof. Poirot held up the letter fragment. This is proof, monsieur. And the footprint in the rose bed, size 10, matches your shoes. You carried Sir Reginald to the shed, then to the hidden room, leaving the petal and the cufflink in your haste. Lady Eleanor, your earring fell on the stair as you helped move him. Lady Eleanor collapsed, sobbing. I only wanted to protect him. He was going to expose a scandal that would ruin us all. I begged him to wait, but he wouldn't listen. Dr. Fraser helped me. We used the chloroform to calm him, to keep him safe. Poirot nodded, his expression solemn. And so the truth is revealed. Sir Reginald is in the priest's hole, alive but silenced. The handkerchief, the glove, the cigarette, they were planted to confuse, to point to others, but the little gray cells of Hercule Poirot they see through the fog. He led the group to the study where he pressed a hidden panel behind the bookcase, revealing a narrow passage. There, in a small, airless room, lay Sir Reginald, groggy but alive, bound and gagged. Lady Eleanor fell to her knees, weeping as Fraser stood frozen, his guilt exposed. Mon Dieu, Poirot said softly. The heart, it can lead us astray, but the truth, it always finds its way. The guests stood in stunned silence, the weight of the revelation settling over them. Blackthorn Manor, its secrets laid bare, would never be the same, and Poirot's genius had once again triumphed. Chapter 11. The Reflection. The revelation in Blackthorn Manor's hidden priest's hole had left the household in a state of stunned silence, the air heavy with the weight of exposed secrets. Sir Reginald Ashford, pale but alive, was carefully extricated from the cramped, airless chamber behind the study's bookcase, his wrists still bearing the marks of his bindings. Lady Eleanor, her face streaked with tears, clung to him, her apologies mingling with sobs as Dr. Malcolm Fraser stood motionless, his once reserved demeanor shattered by the unmasking of his complicity. The other guests, Lord Percival Cavendish, Lady Beatrice, Miss Clara Wentworth, and Victor Langston, watched in a mixture of relief and unease, their own secrets now overshadowed by the dramatic resolution of the mystery. Captain Hastings, standing by the study door, felt a surge of awe at Hercule Poirot's brilliance, though questions still lingered in his mind. Poirot, his small frame radiating quiet triumph, surveyed the scene with his characteristic calm, his green eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of a puzzle solved. Mon Dieu, Poirot said softly, his voice cutting through the murmurs. The affair of Sir Reginald Ashford is concluded, but the heart of this mystery, it lies not only in the crime but in the motives that drove it. Let us reflect, mes amis, on the truths we have uncovered and the lessons they impart. The guests were ushered back to the drawing room, where the chandelier's light cast long shadows across their weary faces. Sir Reginald, supported by Jenkins, sat heavily in an armchair, his expression a mix of relief and bewilderment. Lady Eleanor knelt beside him, her hands clutching his, while Fraser stood apart, his head bowed. Poirot took his place at the center of the room, his posture impeccable, his mustache perfectly symmetrical, as he prepared to deliver his final reflections. Hastings, Poirot began, turning to his friend, you have seen how the little gray cells of Hercule Poirot work, oui? They observe, they analyze, they see what others overlook. This case, it was a masterpiece of deception, but no deception can withstand the clarity of logic. Hastings nodded, his admiration evident. Poirot, it was extraordinary. The handkerchief, the cigarette, the glove, all those clues were planted to mislead us. But how did you know Sir Reginald was still in the house? Poirot's smile was faint but knowing. The clues, Hastings, they were too many, too deliberate. A handkerchief with blood, a cigarette of a rare brand, a glove, a cufflink, an earring. Each pointed to a different suspect, yet none explained the absence of Sir Reginald's body. A true kidnapping would leave fewer traces, not more. The broken window, shattered from within, suggested a staged scene, and the servant's stare with its waxen earring pointed to a hidden passage. The priest's hole, a relic of the manor's history, was the logical place to conceal a living man. Sir Reginald, his voice weak but resolute, spoke up. Monsieur Poirot, I owe you my life. I was a fool to trust so blindly. That letter, it revealed a plot to undermine the Prime Minister, a scandal involving forged documents. I intended to expose it, but Eleanor, she feared for our family, for my safety. Lady Eleanor's sobs grew louder. I only wanted to protect you, Reginald. The scandal, it would have ruined us, our reputation, our future. Dr. Fraser offered to help, to keep you safe until the vote passed. Fraser, his voice low, added, "I acted out of loyalty to Lady Eleanor and fear." Sir Reginald's exposure would have implicated me indirectly in a financial scheme tied to the railway project. I supplied the chloroform, but I swear I meant no harm. Poirot's gaze softened, but his tone remained firm. "Monsieur Fraser, Madame Eleanor, your motives were born of love and fear, but they led you to a dangerous path. The law, it will judge your actions, but Hercule Poirot understands the heart's complexities. You sought to protect, but in doing so you wove a web of lies that endangered others." He turned to the other guests, his eyes sweeping over them. "Lord Cavendish, your handkerchief was a distraction planted to cast suspicion. Your anger, it hid your own financial troubles tied to the same railway project. Lady Beatrice, your glove and your confession revealed your fear of your husband, but also your innocence. Miss Wentworth, your keen eyes saw much, but your imagination, it colored the truth. And Monsieur Langston, your cigarette and your evasive answers pointed to a political game, but not to the crime itself." Langston's face flushed, but he remained silent. Cavendish's jaw tightened, and Beatrice's eyes brimmed with tears. Wentworth, clutching her notebook, looked chastened, her writer's curiosity tempered by the gravity of the moment. Poirot continued, his voice reflective. "This case, it teaches us that the human heart, it is both noble and frail. Sir Reginald sought to uphold justice, yet his actions threatened those he loved. Lady Eleanor and Dr. Fraser sought to protect, yet their methods betrayed their intent. The truth, it is not found in grand gestures, but in the small details, the wax on a stair, a thread on a splinter, a petal stained with blood. These they speak when men and women do not." Hastings, moved by Poirot's words, ventured a question. "Poirot, what will happen now? Will Lady Eleanor and Fraser face charges?" Poirot's expression was solemn. "That, Hastings, is for the authorities to decide. Sir Reginald is alive, and the scandal, it will be addressed discreetly. The Prime Minister, he will be informed, and justice will take its course. But for now, our work here is done." Sir Reginald, his strength returning, rose unsteadily. "Monsieur Poirot, I cannot thank you enough. You have saved me, and perhaps my country, from a great scandal. I will ensure Eleanor is treated fairly." Poirot inclined his head. "Monsieur, the gratitude is mine for a puzzle well solved. But now I must take my leave. The manor, it has revealed its secrets, and Hercule Poirot, he has no more to uncover here." As the guests dispersed, some to pack, others to grapple with their own consciences, Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart. The Rolls-Royce awaited them at the manor's entrance, its polished surface gleaming in the fading light. Hastings, carrying their bags, glanced at his friend. "Poirot, you were magnificent, but I still don't understand how you saw through all those red herrings." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Mon ami, les avertissements rouges, ils sont le bruit qui obscurcit la mélodie. To find the truth, one must listen for the silence between the notes, the pause, the glance, the contradiction. The little gray cells, they hear what the heart tries to hide." As they drove away from Blackthorn Manor, the estate's ivy-clad walls receded into the twilight, its secrets laid bare. Poirot leaned back, his hands folded, a faint smile playing on his lips. The case of Sir Reginald Ashford, a dance of deception and betrayal, had been solved, and the great detective's reputation, like his mustache, remained impeccable. Chapter 12. The Aftermath. The 6th day at Blackthorn Manor dawned with a quiet that felt almost unnatural after the storm of revelations that had swept through the estate. The discovery of Sir Reginald Ashford, alive but shaken in the hidden priest's hole, had lifted the veil of mystery. Yet the manor's grand halls seemed to echo with the lingering weight of betrayal and deceit. The guests, their secrets exposed, moved through the house like ghosts, their interactions marked by strained silences and furtive glances. Captain Hastings, standing on the terrace overlooking the rose gardens, felt a mix of relief and disquiet. Hercule Poirot's genius had unraveled the puzzle, but the human cost of the truth weighed heavily on his mind. Poirot, ever the picture of composure, stood beside Hastings, his black patent leather shoes gleaming in the morning light, his mustache perfectly aligned. He gazed out at the rolling Sussex hills, his green eyes reflective, as if contemplating not just the case but the deeper truths it had revealed. "Mon ami," he said, his voice soft but resonant. "The affair of Blackthorn Manor, it is concluded, yet the ripples of truth they continue to spread. We have restored order, but the heart, it bears scars that logic cannot heal." Hastings turned to him, his brow furrowed. "Poirot, you were brilliant, as always. But I can't help feeling sorry for Lady Eleanor. She acted out of love, didn't she? And Fraser, his career is likely ruined. Was it worth it, exposing them like that?" Poirot's gaze softened, but his tone remained firm. "Worth it, Hastings. The truth it is always worth pursuing, for without it we live in a house of shadows. Lady Eleanor and Dr. Fraser, they chose a path of deception, believing it would protect. But deception, it is a fragile shield, and it shatters under scrutiny. Hercule Poirot does not judge the heart, only the facts." The morning was spent tying up loose ends. Sir Reginald, now recovering in his bedroom under the care of a local physician, had provided a full account of the events leading to his confinement. The letter, he revealed, detailed a plot to forge documents implicating the Prime Minister in a financial scandal tied to the Colonial Railway project, a scheme that could have toppled the government. Sir Reginald had intended to present the evidence to Parliament, but Lady Eleanor, fearing the ruin of their family's reputation, had persuaded Dr. Fraser to help her stage the disappearance, using chloroform to subdue her husband and hide him in the priest's hole until the vote passed. Lady Eleanor, now under house arrest pending a formal inquiry, sat in the drawing room, her auburn hair loose, her eyes hollow. "Monsieur Poirot," she said as he entered, "I know I've done wrong, but I only wanted to protect Reginald. The scandal, it would have destroyed him, our family, everything." Poirot inclined his head, his expression one of measured adeptness, sympathetic understanding. "Madame, the heart, it can lead us astray, but the law, it does not forgive so easily. Yet your love for your husband, it speaks to your character. I shall speak on your behalf, but you must face the consequences." Dr. Fraser, awaiting the arrival of the police, was less forthcoming. "I was a fool, Poirot," he admitted bitterly. "I thought I was helping a friend, but I've ruined myself. The chloroform was meant to be temporary, to buy time. I never meant for it to go this far." Poirot's gaze was steady. "Monsieur, the road to ruin is paved with good intentions. You knew the risks, yet you acted. The truth, it does not bend to regret." The other guests, their roles in the affair clarified, prepared to leave Blackthorn Manor, their reputations tarnished but their freedom intact. Lord Cavendish, his temper subdued, spoke gruffly to Poirot. You've made enemies here, Poirot. But I can't deny you saved Ashford. For that I'm grateful." Lady Beatrice, clinging to his arm, offered a tearful nod of thanks. Miss Clara Wentworth, her notebook now closed, approached Poirot with a wry smile. "Monsieur Poirot, you've given me material for a dozen novels, but I confess I feel foolish for missing the truth." Poirot's smile was kind. "Mademoiselle, your eyes are sharp, but the heart of a writer, it seeks drama over logic. Next time, trust the facts." Victor Langston, his charm restored but tempered, shook Poirot's hand. "You're a devil, Poirot. I thought I had you fooled with that cigarette, but you saw through it. I swear my only crime was political scheming, not kidnapping." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Monsieur, politics, it is a game of shadows, but Hercule Poirot sees through all shadows." As the guests departed, Hastings and Poirot walked the grounds one last time, the rose gardens now peaceful in the afternoon sun. Hastings, still grappling with the case, turned to his friend. "Poirot, you said the clues were planted, but how did you know which ones were real? The letter fragment, the petal, they were the key, weren't they?" Poirot nodded, his hands clasped behind his back. "The letter fragment, it was genuine, for it spoke of Sir Reginald's heart, his fear of betrayal. The petal stained with blood was a mistake, left in haste by Dr. Fraser as he carried Sir Reginald to the shed. The other clues, the handkerchief, the glove, the cigarette, they were too perfect, too accusatory. The guilty, they overplay their hand, Hastings, and in doing so they reveal themselves." Hastings shook his head in wonder. "You make it sound so simple, but it was anything but. What now, Poirot? Back to London?" Poirot's smile was serene. "Oui, mon ami. London awaits with its own mysteries. But first, a cup of tisane to soothe the little grey cells after such exertion." As they climbed into the Rolls-Royce, Blackthorn Manor receded into the distance, its secrets laid bare by Poirot's unerring logic. The case had been a triumph of the mind, a testament to the power of observation and reason. Yet as the car wound through the Sussex countryside, Hastings couldn't shake the feeling that the human cost of the truth, Lady Eleanor's despair, Fraser's downfall, would linger long after the mystery was solved. Poirot, sensing his friend's mood, placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not dwell, Hastings. The world, it is full of shadows, but we bring light. That is our purpose, no?" Hastings nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "You're right, Poirot, as always." And so, with the sun setting behind them, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings left Blackthorn Manor. Their bond strengthened, their mission fulfilled, and the truth, as always, victorious. Chapter 13. The Shadows of Truth, the seventh day at Blackthorn Manor, brought a stillness that felt like the calm after a tempest. Yet the echoes of the resolved mystery lingered in the air, subtle but persistent. The revelation of Sir Reginald Ashford's survival, hidden away in the priest's hole by Lady Eleanor and Dr. Fraser, had lifted the immediate threat of tragedy. But it left behind a complex tapestry of human frailties, love, fear, and ambition that had driven the deception. The manor, with its ivy-clad walls and ancient halls, seemed to exhale a sigh of relief. Yet its grandeur was now tinged with melancholy. Captain Hastings, standing in the grand hall as he prepared for departure, felt a quiet unease. The case was solved, but the personal toll on those involved weighed heavily on his soldier's heart. Hercule Poirot, ever the embodiment of order and precision, stood beside him, adjusting his gloves with meticulous care. His green eyes, sharp as ever, surveyed the hall, taking in the portraits of Ashford ancestors that lined the walls, their stern gazes a silent witness to the recent drama. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice soft but resonant. "The truth, it has been revealed, but its shadows remain. Blackthorn Manor, it will carry the memory of this affair, as will those who played a part in it." Hastings turned to him, his expression troubled. "Poirot, I can't help but think about Lady Eleanor. She acted out of love, didn't she? And yet she faces ruin, possibly prison. It feels unjust somehow." Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile, though his eyes were serious. "Justice, Hastings, it is not always kind, but it is necessary. Lady Eleanor's love for her husband led her to a grave error, and Dr. Fraser's complicity, though born of loyalty, was a betrayal of his own principles. The law will decide their fate, but Hercule Poirot, he seeks only the truth. The heart, it must bear its own burdens." The morning was spent in final preparations. Sir Reginald, now stronger but still shaken, had retired to his study to draft a letter to the Prime Minister detailing the forged documents and the political scandal he had sought to expose. He had promised Poirot that the matter would be handled discreetly, sparing his wife and Fraser from public disgrace if possible. Lady Eleanor, confined to her rooms under the watchful eye of a local constable, had withdrawn into a quiet despair, her once vibrant presence dimmed by guilt and fear. Dr. Fraser, awaiting transfer to London for questioning, sat in the library, his face a mask of resignation. Poirot, seeking a final word, approached him. "Monsieur Fraser," he said, "your knowledge of chloroform made you a valuable ally in this deception, but also a vulnerable one. Why did you agree to help Lady Eleanor?" Fraser's eyes met Poirot's, weary but honest. "She came to me in a panic, Monsieur Poirot. Sir Reginald was determined to expose the scandal, and it would have implicated me. Loan I arranged for the railway project was questionable. I thought hiding him for a few days would buy time to resolve it. I was wrong." Poirot nodded, his expression one of measured understanding. "The temptation to control fate, it is strong, but it leads to ruin. You have learned this, monsieur, at a great cost." The other guests had left the manor, their departures marked by a mixture of relief and shame. Lord Percival Cavendish, his pride bruised by the suspicion cast upon him, had left with Lady Beatrice, whose fragile demeanor seemed strengthened by the ordeal. Miss Clara Wentworth, her novelist's curiosity sated, had promised Poirot a dedication in her next book, though her usual exuberance was tempered by the gravity of the events. Victor Langston, his political ambitions intact but his reputation dented, had slipped away quietly, his charm no match for Poirot's scrutiny. As Poirot and Hastings walked the grounds one final time, the rose gardens where the bloodied petal had been found seemed to hold a quiet beauty, untouched by the deceit that had unfolded. Hastings, his hands in his pockets, turned to his friend. "Poirot, you said the clues were planted to mislead us, but the letter fragment and the petal, they were real, weren't they? How did you know which to trust?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "The letter fragment, Hastings, it bore Sir Reginald's hand and his heart. His fear of betrayal was genuine. The petal, stained with blood, was a mistake, left in haste by Dr. Fraser as he moved Sir Reginald. The other clues, the handkerchief, the glove, the cigarette, they were too deliberate, too accusatory." The guilty, they try to control the narrative, but the truth, it escapes in the smallest details. Hastings shook his head, marveling. You make it sound so clear, but it was a devil of a puzzle. What about Jenkins? He was near the servant's stair. Did he know more than he let on? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. The butler, he is loyal, but he sees much. I suspect he knew of the priest's hole, perhaps even of Lady Eleanor's plan, but he chose silence to protect her. Loyalty, it can blind as much as it binds. As they approached the waiting Rolls-Royce, Poirot paused, his gaze lingering on the manor. Blackthorn Manor, it is a place of beauty and secrets, but it is the human heart that creates both. This case, it reminds us that even the best intentions can lead to darkness, and only the light of reason can guide us back. Hastings nodded, a faint smile breaking through. You're a philosopher as much as a detective, Poirot. What's next? Another mystery in London? Poirot's laugh was soft but warm. Perhaps, mon ami. But first, a quiet evening, a tisane, and the order of my thoughts. The little gray cells, they deserve a rest, no? As the car pulled away, Blackthorn Manor faded into the distance, its secrets exposed, its shadows softened by the truth. Poirot leaned back, his hands folded, his mind already turning to the next challenge. For Hercule Poirot, the pursuit of truth was not just a profession but a calling, and in its service, he was unmatched. Chapter 14. The Final Threads. The 8th day at Blackthorn Manor unfolded under a sky heavy with clouds, as if the heavens themselves were reluctant to shine on the estate after the turmoil of the past week. The resolution of Sir Reginald Ashford's disappearance had brought a semblance of peace, but the manor's grand halls still resonated with the echoes of betrayal, fear, and redemption. The guests had departed, leaving behind a house that felt both emptier and heavier, its ancient walls bearing silent witness to the drama that had unfolded. Captain Hastings, packing his suitcase in the guest room, felt a curious mix of satisfaction and melancholy. Hercule Poirot's triumph had restored order, but the human cost, Lady Eleanor's anguish, Dr. Fraser's disgrace, and the fractured trust among the household, cast a long shadow. Poirot, ever the picture of meticulous calm, stood in the grand hall, adjusting his hat in front of a gilded mirror. His green eyes, sharp and reflective, seemed to see beyond the polished surface, as if tracing the final threads of the mystery. Mon ami, he said, turning to Hastings. The case of Blackthorn Manor is closed, yet there are threads that remain, small questions, subtle inconsistencies that must be tied before we depart. The truth, it is like a tapestry. Every stitch must be perfect. Hastings, setting down his suitcase, raised an eyebrow. Inconsistencies, Poirot? You found Sir Reginald, exposed Lady Eleanor and Fraser. What's left to unravel? Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. The heart of the mystery is solved, oui, but there are details that nag at the little gray cells. The scream, for instance. Why was it so prolonged, so deliberate? And Jenkins, the butler, his loyalty, it is admirable, but does it conceal a deeper role? We must ensure no shadow remains. The morning was spent in quiet investigation, as Poirot sought to resolve these final questions. He began by revisiting the servant's stair, where the pearl earring and wax smudge had been found. The narrow passage, dimly lit and rarely used, seemed to hold secrets even now. Poirot's gloved fingers traced the banister, pausing at a faint indentation, a mark that suggested something heavy had been dragged or rested there. "Hastings," he said, "this mark, it is not from a candle or a footstep. It is from a rope, perhaps, or a strap, something used to move Sir Reginald to the priest's hole." Hastings' eyes widened. "A rope? But you said there were no signs of a rope at the window." "Précisément," Poirot replied. "The window was a distraction, but the stair, it was the true path. The rope, it was used within the house to lower Sir Reginald into the hidden room without leaving the study." Next, Poirot summoned Jenkins, whose stoic demeanor had begun to crack under the strain of the past days. The butler stood in the library, his hands clasped tightly as Poirot questioned him. "Monsieur Jenkins," Poirot said, his voice soft but probing, "you were near the servants' stair before the scream, as Miss Wentworth observed. You claim to be fetching wine, yet your haste suggests another purpose. Tell me, did you know of the priest's hole?" Jenkins' face paled, his eyes flickering. I knew of it, sir, as part of the manor's history, but I swear I had no part in hiding Sir Reginald. I saw Lady Eleanor near the stair that evening looking distressed, but I thought it was her worry for her husband." Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "And the scream, monsieur? It came from the stair, not the study. Did you hear it before you reached the cellar?" Jenkins hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. It was strange, prolonged. I thought it was a servant, perhaps startled. I didn't connect it to Sir Reginald until later." Poirot nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Merci, monsieur. Your loyalty to Lady Eleanor, it is commendable, but it blinded you to the truth. You suspected, yet you did not speak." Jenkins bowed his head, his voice barely audible. "I failed her, sir. I should have acted sooner." The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. As Poirot and Hastings walked through the rose gardens, the gardener, a weathered man named Thomas, approached with a hesitant air. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, "I found something this morning near the shed. I didn't think it important before, but—" He produced a small silver key, its surface tarnished but intact. Poirot's eyes gleamed as he took the key. "This, Monsieur Thomas, is most significant. Where exactly was it found?" "In the soil near the rose bed where the petal was," Thomas replied. "It was buried as if dropped in a hurry." Back in the library, Poirot examined the key, which bore no markings but was small enough to fit a desk drawer or a hidden lock. He returned to the study, testing it on the desk where the missing letter had been kept. To Hastings' astonishment, it turned smoothly, unlocking a hidden compartment beneath the drawer. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a draft of the letter Sir Reginald had written, detailing the forged documents and naming Victor Langston as a key figure in the scandal. "Hastings!" Poirot exclaimed, his voice vibrant with triumph. "This is the final thread. Langston, he was not the kidnapper, but he was the betrayer Sir Reginald feared. The letter was taken to protect him, but this draft, it was overlooked." Hastings' jaw dropped. "Langston? But you said he wasn't guilty of the kidnapping." "Non, mon ami," Poirot said. "His guilt lies in the political plot, not the physical act. Lady Eleanor and Dr. Fraser acted to protect Sir Reginald from exposing Langston, fearing the consequences for their family. Langston, he played his part by planting the cigarette, knowing suspicion would fall on him but not connect to the kidnapping." Poirot gathered Sir Reginald and Lady Eleanor in the study, presenting the draft letter. Sir Reginald's face hardened as he read it. "Langston," he muttered. "I trusted him and he betrayed us all. I'll ensure this reaches the Prime Minister." Lady Eleanor, her eyes red-rimmed, nodded. I was wrong, Monsieur Poirot. I thought hiding Reginald would save him, but I only made things worse. Poirot's tone was gentle but firm. Madame, the heart, it can lead us astray, but the truth, it restores balance. You have a chance to make amends. As Poirot and Hastings prepared to leave, the manor seemed to settle into a quieter rhythm, its secrets fully exposed. The Rolls-Royce awaited, and Poirot paused at the door, his gaze lingering on the estate. Blackthorn Manor, it is a place of beauty and tragedy, but the truth, it has set it free. Hastings, carrying their bag, smiled. Another case solved, Poirot. You never cease to amaze me. Poirot's eyes twinkled. The little grey cells, Hastings, they never fail. Now to London, and perhaps a quiet evening to restore the order of the mind. As the car rolled away, Blackthorn Manor faded into the Sussex hills, its shadows dispelled by the light of Poirot's reason. The case, with its intricate web of clues and motives, was complete, and the great detective's legacy grew ever brighter. Chapter 15. The Departure. The 9th day at Blackthorn Manor dawned with a serene clarity. The Sussex hills bathed in a soft golden light that seemed to wash away the lingering shadows of the past week's turmoil. The mystery of Sir Reginald Ashford's disappearance had been laid bare, its intricate web of deception woven from love, fear, and betrayal unraveled by the relentless logic of Hercule Poirot. The manor, though still grand, felt quieter, as if relieved of the burden of its secrets. Captain Hastings, standing on the gravel drive as the Rolls-Royce was prepared for their departure, felt a bittersweet satisfaction. The case was solved, Sir Reginald was safe, and justice was in motion, yet the human frailties exposed. Lady Eleanor's desperate love, Dr. Fraser's misguided loyalty, and Victor Langston's political treachery left a poignant aftertaste. Poirot, immaculate in his tailored suit, adjusted his hat with a delicate flick of his fingers, his green eyes surveying the manor one last time. His mustache, perfectly symmetrical, seemed to reflect the order he had restored to the chaos of Blackthorn Manor. "Mon ami," he said, turning to Hastings, "the affair is complete, the truth revealed. Yet every case, it leaves a mark, not only on those involved, but on the heart of Hercule Poirot. The pursuit of truth, it is a noble endeavor, but it is never without cost." Hastings, hefting their bags into the car, nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, Poirot, I can't stop thinking about Lady Eleanor. She meant well, didn't she? And yet she and Fraser will face the law. It feels heavy, somehow." Poirot's smile was gentle but resolute. "The heart, Hastings, it is a labyrinth. Lady Eleanor acted out of love, Doctor. Fraser out of loyalty, but their choices led to deception. The law, it will judge them, but it is not for Hercule Poirot to weigh their souls, only their actions. The truth, it is our guide, and we have followed it faithfully." The morning was spent in final farewells. Sir Reginald, now regaining his strength, met Poirot and Hastings in the grand hall, his face etched with gratitude and resolve. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice steady, "you have saved more than my life. You have preserved my honor and protected my country from a scandal that could have shaken its foundations. The letter, the forged documents, I've sent word to the Prime Minister, and the matter will be handled discreetly. As for Eleanor," he paused, his eyes glistening, "I'll do all I can to ensure she's treated leniently. She acted out of fear for me, for our family." Poirot inclined his head, his expression one of measured compassion. Monsieur, your wife's love, it is a powerful force, but it led her astray. You are a man of influence. Use it wisely, and perhaps the law will see her heart as well as her deeds. Lady Eleanor, still under house arrest, remained in her rooms, but she sent a note to Poirot delivered by Jenkins. It read simply, "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot, for finding my husband and for seeing the truth. I will face what comes, knowing I meant no harm." Poirot read it silently, then tucked it into his pocket, his face unreadable. Dr. Fraser had been taken to London by the authorities, his career in tatters, but his confession complete. Poirot had spoken to the constable, emphasizing Fraser's cooperation and lack of malicious intent, hoping to mitigate the consequences. Victor Langston, though not directly involved in the kidnapping, faced scrutiny for his role in the political scandal. His charm no longer sufficient to shield him from the Prime Minister's displeasure. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the manor's entrance as Poirot and Hastings prepared to leave. "Monsieur Poirot," he said, his voice low, "I should have spoken sooner. I suspected Lady Eleanor's distress, but I thought it my duty to stay silent. I was wrong." Poirot's gaze was kind but firm. "Monsieur Jenkins, loyalty, it is a noble trait, but it must be tempered with wisdom. You served your mistress well, but the truth, it serves all. Do not carry this burden too heavily." As they walked to the car, Hastings glanced at the rose gardens, where the bloodied petal had been found, a small clue that had helped unravel the mystery. "Poirot," he said, "that petal, the letter draft, the wax smudge, how did you know they were the true clues, not more red herrings?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "The little gray cells, Hastings. They see the pattern where others see chaos. The petal, it was stained with blood, a mistake made in haste. The letter draft, it bore Sir Reginald's truth, overlooked by those who took the original. The wax, it marked a path of secrecy. The other clues, the handkerchief, the glove, the cigarette, they were too perfect, too accusatory. The guilty, they try to control the stage, but the truth, it slips through their fingers." Hastings shook his head, a wry smile forming. "You make it sound so simple, Poirot, but it was a devil of a case. I thought Langston was our man for sure." Poirot chuckled softly. "Langston, he played his part in the shadows, but the kidnapping, it was the work of love, not politics. The heart, it is a more dangerous conspirator than any politician." The Rolls-Royce rolled smoothly down the drive, Blackthorn Manor's ivy-clad walls fading into the distance. Poirot leaned back, his hands folded, a faint smile playing on his lips. "To London, mon ami," he said. "A quiet evening, a tisane, and perhaps a new mystery awaiting us. The world, it is full of puzzles, and Hercule Poirot, he is always ready." Hastings laughed, the weight of the case lifting slightly. "You're incorrigible, Poirot, but I wouldn't have it any other way." As the car wound through the Sussex countryside, the manor became a memory, its secrets exposed, its wounds laid bare. The case of Blackthorn Manor, with its labyrinth of clues and motives, had tested Poirot's genius and reaffirmed his belief in the power of reason. The truth had prevailed, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings drove toward their next adventure, their bond as steadfast as ever.